Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Darren Pierce here on the West Coast, where it's only 10 o'clock, and I want to thank Tim for inviting me to join in and show everyone the new things that we're doing with the estimating solution. And by the way, you've been looking at it for a few minutes now because we've had started the screen share. So you are seeing my screen at this point. Now, there are a couple of things that I want to talk about before jumping into the functionality of the software. As you may know, we have moved from the pervasive environment quite some time ago, and now we're at a point where well, actually quite some time ago, we moved to the full SQL version. Now, as we've been going along, we've been increasing functionality and really trying to come to parity with what the pervasive environment held for us. And I think we're at a point really now where we've met that, and we're adding some exciters along the way. So first off, and when you talk about SQL, the SQL backend, the Microsoft SQL backend, if you're wearing the IT hat, if you're wearing the systems hat for your company, that excites you because it does give you an easier way to manage that database. All the estimates, all the databases are held within that one instance. And by the way, with the installation, SQL Express is installed, and we have some very, very large companies utilizing that and have not reached that limit. So it does give you a capability to get that free SQL Express license along with it. Another thing that I can't show you, but I think you will be happy about, is moving to SQL does get away from the protection devices. So no longer do we have that dongle attached to that computer of yours or to the server. We have a license entitlement server here at this office, actually, and it manages those licenses. So internet connection is, of course, important with that, but you can also check out those licenses. So it makes it so much easier for you to stay on top and manage those licenses. Now, as we jump into the application here, and we look at this, we did a total UI refresh. Not totally. I mean, if some of you are working with SQL, we have rearranged things in more of a logical manner. So the buttons are a little bit different. The arrangement of those buttons are in different tabs in different areas within the solution. But for those of you that are in the pervasive environment and still residing there, feel comfortable with the fact that we didn't change everything. There's a lot of the exact same functionality. It's just in the SQL environment. So there's not this big learning curve like moving from Windows 7 to Windows 8 or Windows 10. It's not that big learning curve. It's pretty straightforward. Now, as we jump into the application, I'm just going to run through functionality. Some things are in the SQL version, have been in past SQL versions, but I think it's important to highlight those just so that you know that they're there. And one thing is when we get into the entering of the quantities, well, if I get in and I start making changes and start going through the process of updating some of these numbers here, I go through and I say, oh, well, I shouldn't have made that change, right? We've had those instances where, well, we've entered the wrong number. And what do? We got to go back to formula. We got to figure out where that number came from, because in the pervasive environment, it wrote, of course, directly and saved that information automatically. Well, in today's environment, what this will do is it will give you the capability to back that information out or redo that as well. So one of the key things, it's kind of interesting. It's a very basic functionality, but we couldn't do it in the pervasive. We can definitely, of course, have it available to us in the SQL environment. Performance things that we look at within these particular tabs right here is, you know how you go through and you collapse individually, one by one each level at a time. And if you're using overlying totals, or should I say the extended functionality where you have all of these drill downs up to 10 levels deep, that gets pretty laborious as far as that process is concerned. Well, I just want to go ahead and collapse all or expand all. Something pretty simple, but again, it's one of those things where we want to save you time with clicks as you go through the software. Now, the layout here, of course, is the Microsoft ribbon, which most of those solutions are going to. And what we want to do is, of course, make it easy for you to build out your quick access toolbar here. It's specific to every individual. So depending upon what functions, I don't want to go through the tabs and do this, this, and this. What I want to be able to do is just go in and say, I want models to be there, or I want one-time item to be there. Click a button, and it's going to be there specifically for you. So now I can minimize this overlying ribbon right here, and we're good to go. So make that very easy for you to navigate through the system. I'm kind of going through the tabs here as we touch on these. The reporting is going to be some things that we're going to be doing in here. In the past, there was actually on the, I believe it was the advanced tab. Now we've got the totals, the info, and the settings right here as well. As we move through this, one of the things that we've done and where we are going with the solution is more capability, more functionality working with Excel. So in this case right here, if you're building out WBS values specific to a customer's needs, and you want to go out and grab this. A great example of this is, of course, bid items, if you're working with the DOT or something to that effect. But what we're doing is building a capability for you to export and import those details in. So in this case right here, you'll see I'm going to go into WBS codes. I've got bid item right there. Well, I want to build out that, or I want to take what my customer has given me, say, okay, let's bring that into the software. Well, in this case right here, I don't have that already built, so let's export that out. And what that's going to do is it's going to create an Excel spreadsheet for me. I want to enter those values. So in this case, it's bid item, right? Going to be bid item 1, and I'm going to just go ahead and pull those down, say good, say save it. It remembers exactly where you put that, so it will import that in. And now I've got all of those values entered into the system. I didn't bother taking time in this presentation to go through and get the descriptions in there, but think of that. If you're receiving those WBS codes in an Excel format, now what we can do is go out and grab them, boom, bring them in. Now that I've gotten that added in there, now I can go through the process, and this is something that will make you SQL users out there. We didn't have the old Utah button in here, but now we do, and we can go through and start associating those particular, tagging those takeoffs with the appropriate WBS code. Now, one thing I'll allude to while I'm in here is alternates. That is the exciter for this particular release, is a more formalized way of working with alternates. And we'll get into that in a minute. So as we jump over here, not really much changed in here or in the reporting. So we have built it out a little bit more. One thing to mention, though, is this. As we start releasing, getting more and more versions released of the SQL, so for future releases that we'll be looking at, for those of you that are on the Core Plus, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding additional reports every release. So we're throwing it out there, and we say, okay, what are some of the things that we can make more of a general type of report that will meet everybody's needs, and we're going to build that into the system. And I'll talk a little bit more about Core and Core Plus when we get a little bit further along, because there's some incentives for you standard license users out there to move to the SQL, and you'll get some additional, actually not just some, a lot of additional functionality in making that move. So in here, it's pretty much the same reporting functionality that we have, but it will grow. This advanced reporting area will continue to expand and get additional functionality. And maybe as I go through this, I'll even kind of suggest some things as we go through. For standard license users that move to Core, you will get the comparison and variance reports and the additional reporting that we used to have in the extended. So moving through here, you're just seeing a new refresh on all of these particular items that we're looking at right here. So pretty much the same stuff, just organized a little bit differently for you. As we move to the Advanced tab, that's where we start to get into some of the changes right here. because we want to give you a more formalized way of managing those alternates. In the past, what did we do? We had to have we had to have two estimates, and we'd have to bring them together, and depending upon what those alternates were. And now in today's world, we can do all of that consolidated in one estimate. So before I go into this particular one right here, I'm going to show you what we can do here. So say I start off an estimate fresh. Well, we've got statuses out there. Now, status at this point is not a table. So what you can do is you can export or import in. That's the data connector, once again, giving you the capability to go ahead and export it out, create it in an Excel spreadsheet, and then bring it in. In this case, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and say, let's just import this in. Now you're going to see all of those records that I had on that Excel spreadsheet, and we're good to go. We've got approved, pending, considering, rejected. I guess pending and considering would be the same thing there. But you can go on and on depending upon where they are in the process and how you want your naming convention to be. In the future, this will be a table that you can just add to. You don't have to import in. And then as we build out our alternates, same thing, is we're going to give you the capability to go ahead and export this out. Once again, creating that Excel spreadsheet. And for those of you that have been on the SQL product, we have built the data connector in. So if you are using database editor, well, in the old days, Pricer, where we were updating the pricing for the database, used to be done through the application. Well, that's more of a management type of functionality. That's more of something that your database, the master, the individual that manages your database would do. So we move that into the database editor where we can update those prices from Excel. Not going to show that today, but we most definitely can do that. So I can close out of this and open this up so that I can see, okay, in this case right here, we're going to call this base bid. I'm going to say alternate one, and I can go on and on and on. So now we can capture that information and say, okay, save that, close it, and then import it in. So a lot of us like to use Excel. It has a little bit more flexibility as far as building out these things. And in the future, what we're going to be doing is taking that to all sorts of different levels, where we're going to look at being able to send it out, an estimate out to Excel, make some changes to that, and then go ahead and import that in. If you start thinking about, for those of you that are taking advantage of Cruise and those rate tables that we work with there, same thing. So we're going to be expanding this data connector out even further so we can take advantage of Excel and updating the tables, not of course just the database pricing, but of course those other tables that we have within the system. So see how easy that is? I can put in the description, go ahead and say okay. And now we have a summary page that we'll be able to go ahead and start working with and showing those alternates right there. Well, in this case right here, I've got some alternates that are already built into the system, and I'm going to go to that particular page. Now, here's the thing: when you look at this, we can show this, and I chose yellow because it shows up pretty good in this presentation. But if you want to show the alternates on the estimate, you can have that line across the numbers there, so it has it marked out or not. So you have the capability to show it any way that you want in your options. So if you go into your options, you can go ahead and change the font, the look, the color, all of that good stuff in there. But I have it struck out, or striked as they call it, within this particular estimate right here. Now, when I've got this, I'm going to go ahead and show it overall totals there, or we can break that out, of course, as well. So let's expand that. Now we go into that summary page. And by the way, we're going to incorporate those markups that are not allocated will be showing up here as well. So when you get into markups, when you start working with the solution, you can go ahead and play around with how those alternates or how those markups, those add-ons are going to be reflected in the alternates screen right here. So here's our summary page. And what we're looking at is the pending. Now, of course, this is very simplistic, right? I'm not trying to get something overly dramatic, but of course we'll have how many alternates, you know, in a project. Could go on and on and on. We're going to give you an easier way to do what ifs with those alternates and manage those very effectively, very efficiently within one estimate. So right here, it's just really basic. Of course, the base bid has been approved. Well, there's all of my statuses that we can utilize right here. And then we look over here, we can say, well, what is the impact going to be on the total if this is approved? Okay, well, we can see that impact, and now we can see what that total is going to be. So if we even work with a customer, of course, you can do reporting on this as well. Wouldn't build something into the system if we couldn't report on it. Or we can go back and say this is back to pending, and we'll show both of those. And of course, tile, we're going to approve that and very quickly show the impact, and quite the difference there, of course, tile to carpet, that type of thing. But not real world numbers, of course, because I wanted to be dramatic on this. But when you look at this, it's going to give you an opportunity to very efficiently, effectively track those alternates and do it all within one estimate. So it's pretty powerful stuff. Something new, like I said, we're no longer trying to get to parity. We're actually putting some new exciters, new functionality into the system. Now, as far as performance is concerned, we've enhanced the performance. Again, we always do that during every release. So increasing the performance, the speed, and the activity of what's going on within the software. But we also want to make little changes, much like what I was showing you earlier, being able to navigate through the system. Well, that's the same case right here, where we wanted to make it a few less clicks to add certain columns to the spreadsheet. So now I'm going through and I want to add a certain column to this spreadsheet, whatever it may be. Let's say it was going to be crews. So I see crew right there. Now I can add that to the spreadsheet, and very quickly. Before, it used to go into layout, and then we go into that, then we go to the next step. It'd take us a few steps to get that particular column onto the spreadsheet. One thing to mention in the layouts, for those of you that are not to the SQL solution yet, is we have the capability, of course, for my layouts, and then we have shared layouts. So if you have the list of my layouts and then the global layouts that you want for everybody to see. So we've kind of broken that out so that you have two separate areas that you can build out your own layouts and then the global layouts as well. Some other things that we've done based upon sensibility, logic. If I right click in some of these columns here, if you remember in Pervasive, or if you're using Pervasive, it's got a long list of functions. Well, now what we've done is we've updated that, so based upon the column you're in, that will determine what you're going to see. So I can right click over here, adjust column. If I want to go over to here, I can substitute an item, edit the item in the database, so on and so forth. So a little bit more of the logic behind the system. Now, with the estimating, those are the steps that we're taking towards updating this and making a solution that you really would like to move to. But there's also the process. What's the first thing that we do within the process when we get a job is we receive the plans, right? Well, how is alternates impacting that process? Well, if you look at takeoff, and I'll jump out of here. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the takeoff solution, it is a digital takeoff solution, reads PDFs in their native format, multi-user environment, true database application. What you'll look at though is if you're using items with variables, or assemblies, of course, have variables with them, and giving you the capability to enter in all of those different specifications that may come up for a project. In here, though, we've got these traces. It's a trace library that moves from one job to the next. You don't have to recreate it. But in here, when you go out and do your takeoff, what you're doing is you're entering these specifications, whatever they may be. So I can go through wall height, entering all of these specifications. Not the intention of the demonstration, but just to give you kind of a feel for what the solution can do. Now, what I've done here is I've created a takeoff here, just very rudimentary, very basic. But in this situation, what we've got here is we've got two different things that we're pricing out for a customer as far as an alternate is concerned. And I want that to be a downstream process that will update the estimate. So when I look at my layer list, I can go ahead and show you. I've got walls, of course, out there. I want to only see maybe the carpet. So there's the carpet that we took off, or there's the tile that we took off. Just comparing those two. Like I said, I kept it very basic as far as that's concerned. Lots of ways to do alternates. This is just one way. Now, as we look at this, the specifications of this is you'll notice I've got WBS codes at my fingertips that integrate with our estimating software. So this one is, of course, alternate one tile, and this one here is going to be alternate carpet, right? So it's going to flow over into the estimating system, right? Let's highlight that guy. There's carpet. And then the rest of it's going to be the base bid. That's, like I said, I kept it very basic at this point. Well, how can we update the estimate? How can we create an estimate very quickly? Well, it's easy to do. I can go ahead. I'll move this over just so we can see it better. Not that it's necessary at this point. And I'm not going to go through all of the typicals that I do in here because there's some discussion points I want to make before we jump off here. I want to keep it to about half an hour for you guys. Is this solution will automatically go out and find things that we've taken off. So there's the carpet, there's the tile, there's all of the slabs that I've done that I didn't really show you right here. These are my base bid, so I went ahead and kept these in there as the base bid. Automatically finds them, automatically generates it to the estimate for me. Well, I have to push the button, right? So automatic, how automatic can you get? So when I look at that, now I've generated that. I've costed out all of those things that I took off to the estimating software. Now I'll go to the estimate. And in the process of doing that and sending that information over, what it's done is it's created a summary of those particular items right there, right? Now at this point, I don't have the statuses in there, which I need to do. So let's go ahead and import those real quick. Say OK. Now when I go into my summary page here, I can say, of course, the base bid is approved and these are pending. Now you can go through that that process that I showed you earlier that makes it so easy for you to track these alternates. In commercial, residential, I see, you know, you get those in the spec book. We get the alternates. Hey, price this out versus this. Maybe we'll add this and subtract this. You know, those types of things. So we get a list of those alternates out of the gate on some of the projects that we're working with. Well, during our takeoff, our digital takeoff, why not have that available for us so that we can just do that in one step rather than coming into the estimate? So those are the key things that I wanted to kind of highlight. Other things that will be of interest for you depending upon what solution you're on. Sage 100, now we have the SQL estimating to SQL Sage 100 integration so that you have budgets, proposals, and change orders available to you. And last conversation I want to have is talking to the standard users out there. So what we've done is we've incorporated some functionality for those customers that want to gravitate to the core functionality. And really, to make it very easy as far as an explanation is concerned, is we've incorporated the extended functionality in the core product. Now, for a very short period of time, what we're doing is allowing customers to navigate to that or move to that at no additional cost except for support and maintenance. Now, what does that look like? Well, a few things that you do have in there, and I'll just kind of go through these very quickly, is the move copy functionality, where I want to move things from one area to the next. In standard, that's not very much fun, but we give you that capability. We can actually copy these as well. So when I move copy, I can copy these particular items. Let's say it's section 10. You can go ahead and say OK, and we're good to go. So now what we've done is, okay, let's minimize this really quick. We've created section 10. So in this case, what we can do is copy, move very quickly. And one of the other things that you look at is additional tabs at the bottom here to work with. Also additional WBS codes and library. So rather than recreating that WBS code every time, you will open up the system and it will have your library of WBS codes available to you. And I actually should go to the right area so you can see that. So we'll have those WBS codes available to you. Some other functionality that you would receive is some of the advanced reporting, the variance and the comparison reports that are in today's extended standard, or should I say Core Plus, and now they're going to be available for you in the Core Plus application, or should I say the Core application. So if you need further details on what those additional functionalities, those features are, definitely call our friends at Alliance, and they can walk you through those particular features.